back here for another Tottenham update. And it's the start of the new transfer window today, 16th of June. The transfer window has reopened after a short closure of the window, which I thought was absolute nonsense, to be honest. But here we are.
We already have a signing. What's to complain about?
Yeah, we have a signing which actually signed outside the transfer window. So it just shows you how much nonsense this kind of window was. But look, we're here. It's open now, and it ain't closing until the end of August, beginning of September. So it's time for Spurs to get down to more business, and let's see what is doing the rounds on the transfer universe today. And the first rumour that we've got for you is regarding Brentford's very own Nathan Collins. Graham Bailey says that Tottenham are interested in Collins. Arsenal, Liverpool and Newcastle are also interested in the Brentford centre-back. When we first heard we were linked with him from that Brentford ITK, we all kind of scoffed at it and laughed at it. And now apparently Arsenal, Liverpool and Newcastle are interested. I think
just missing Madrid and Barcelona.
Exactly.
Really.
when we first spoke to that Brentford fan that came on,
yeah,
I mean, and then I think he kind of swayed a lot of people saying maybe this guy is the right guy.
Well, when you actually look at his stats, obviously the Brentford Michael, he was saying that he was a defender who a lot of Brentford fans were kind of not sceptical about, but didn't know how good he was, I should say, when they first signed him, and has really developed incredibly well under Thomas Frank for Brentford. Obviously signed from Wolves for a good fee, like 20 million, which for Brentford obviously is a big fee. And he's actually improved a lot. And as you look at his stats, like for aerial duels, he's one of the best. And also, which is obviously really important, being aerially dominant, but for line-breaking passes as well, he's up there with some of the top centre-backs in the league in terms of the amount of times he can get the ball forward in between the lines accurately, which is obviously something that Romero gets praised a lot for. So maybe he's one of these players who's gone under the radar and actually could do a real good job. Now, with the talk of Romero leaving, which I'm sure we'll get into, if we were to replace him with Nathan Collins, I don't think a lot of fans will see that as an upward step, would they, or a sign of progression or a sign of ambition. And I guess if it...
mediocrity.
All that kind of stuff. And hard to argue against it on that front, but obviously I think Nathan Collins is maybe someone who potentially could be ready for a step up, even though we didn't quite think that before we spoke to a lot of Brentford fans who seemed to be convinced this guy is got all the tools to be a top centre-back. And it'd be interesting to see how he does if it was to happen. I'm not saying I'm in favour of it, because I would want kind of someone with elite level experience to replace Romero. That's obviously what I would want, but we know that Frank has a propensity of working within a budget. We know that Spurs aren't the kind of club to go splash big money. And maybe Nathan Collins represent value in the market, where if we get a good fee for Romero and you get Nathan Collins for 30 million, all of a sudden you can reinvest that other money in other places. But yeah, it's somewhat. I wouldn't want to look personally. I obviously wouldn't want to sign him as our first choice centre back. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, it's interesting hearing a lot of Brentford fans talk about how good he actually is.
The reality is with Nathan Collins, I know he's 24 and defenders do usually like to develop a bit later on in their career as opposed to attacking players. But he has only had one, good season in the Premier League, because, they were saying in his first season wasn't that great. Wolves, weren't exactly upset to see the back of him when he did join Brentford. So
they got a good fee for him.
Yeah, they did get a bit of fee, but I mean, the Wolves fans that we've heard from and that I've seen from have all been like, yeah, you know what, we weren't unhappy to see him go, and we thought 20 million was a great deal at the time. So when you're looking at Nathan Collins, he's had one good season, you know what I mean? And is one good season enough evidence to suggest that he can really replace Coutinho Romero? I would say no.
Well, that's modern football. One good season, your price skyrockets and your stock skyrockets in one good season. I think the days of waiting to see if a player has 2 or 3 good seasons, I think, are long gone. I think most teams now, you have one good season, and if enough people see enough quality in you, they'll be willing to snap you up. And that's kind of how it works these days. It doesn't make it right, but it's just how it is. And you're kind of, if you wait till the guy has 2 or 3 good seasons, his value skyrockets even more, and you're kind of sometimes too late even.
Which leaves you also susceptible to making more mistakes in the transfer market.
Yeah.
So, you can look at it both ways, I guess, but
I'm saying that's how modern football is these days.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And, we've signed players like Dom Solanke off the back of that, one real good season in the Premier League, and he's come here for a fee of 65 million. And yeah, you're right, that is how it works. But I'm talking about replacing a guy like Cuti Romero, World Cup winner, leadership ability that we've seen.
How many good seasons he had at Atlanta?
Well, he just got, I can't remember.
He had Serie A Defender of the Year, but I don't know if he was I don't think it was multiple amazing seasons there.
Maybe. I think it was at least 2, wasn't it?
Obviously, Juve let go of him, didn't they? And gave him to Atalanta.
Yeah, so he had decent seasons for Genoa before Atlanta, didn't he? Because he really made his name at Genoa, and then Atalanta got him on the back of that.
Yeah, but I don't think Brentford signed him for 20 million if he was bad at Wolves. You know what I mean? He must have been pretty good.
Well, there was a reason why Wolves fans were happy to see the back of him then.
I don't know. I don't remember the mindset of Wolves fans back in whenever they signed him.
They've spoken about it recently now.
Okay, fine. I don't know how many Wolves fans you've seen, but anyway, I remember him being decent at Wolves. And they obviously Brentford have signed him for a pretty good fee for 20 million because they think he's good.
Yeah.
And obviously this season he's been great. I don't know how he was in the past 2 seasons, but he had a really good first season. Frank knows him well. Look, I understand your point. I completely agree with you. Off the back of one good season, I don't think he's good enough to replace Romero. But in this day and age, one good season is you can base a lot off that. I think it's all about in this day and age for recruitment getting ahead of the game, especially where we are, where we're not willing to a lot of the time spend massive money or put massive wages down. You've got to get players just before they explode, kind of thing. And maybe we feel like that this is now. I'm not sitting here saying, based off one good season, we should be signing him and replacing Romero with him. I'm just saying this is where I think a lot of clubs think, especially where we are, or how we operate, actually, not where we are as a club, how we operate. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah. Look, it's hard to argue against that. And I think it is just a bit frustrating when you're looking at the prospect of someone like Romero going. You really want to bring in, someone of that kind of same stature. But look, the reality is that's probably not going to happen at Spurs, and that's just more of a case of how we operate more than anything else. So, look, if Frank is convinced that Nathan Collins is the guy and he can do the job, then I'm all for it at the end of the day.
We've also got Danso there. You got obviously Dragoshin if he's going to be staying. Got Van der Ven. So there's no guarantee Nathan Collins comes in and starts anyway.
Yeah.
But I agree. If we sell Romero, especially for the big fee, 60 million plus, replacing Nathan Collins is not going to be anything but underwhelming. Let's be honest.
Let's move on and talk about another Brentford player in Bryan Mbeumo. Sky Sports says that it remains to be seen whether Tottenham will follow up initial talks over a deal for Bryan with a bid or move on to Antoine Semenyo. And Mbeumo is understood to be intrigued by Spurs, with Thomas Frank having just been appointed as their new manager. But one source says he's still leaning towards joining Manchester United. Samuel Luckhurst, who's a Manchester United journalist, says that Man U are confident of signing Bryan Mbeumo and will still join despite late interest from Tottenham and Thomas Frank. Andre Onana has advised Mbeumo to join Manchester United, and Mbeumo wants to move to United despite late interest from Spurs, and Onana has played a role in swaying his Cameroon international teammate.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Onana advised him to join Tottenham. So I don't think that's a surprise. Look, of course,
it would play into the narrative of Man United fans saying he's working against us.
Yeah, true. Obviously, from the Man United side, they're going to put that out, aren't they? I'm not saying it's not true, and it probably is, given the fact that we've already heard from reliable sources like Ornstein that he really wants Man United, and even included Tottenham in his report that he's chosen Man United over Tottenham. Obviously, that was before Frank got appointed, but they're obviously going to put that out there that they're confident they can get this deal done. Mbeumo still wants them, all that kind of stuff. But until that deal is signed, until there's ink on the paper, nothing's set in stone. And the fact of the matter is, we are now, I think, maybe over 2 weeks since that original report from Ornstein, and they haven't got that deal over the line. Cunha was, I think, done fairly quickly when we first heard those reports, and for one reason or another, Mbeumo hasn't been. Reportedly, United aren't prepared to pay at the moment what Brentford are demanding. So these things in football are very fluid and move very quickly, and if maybe Mbeumo might even see if United are kind of hesitating on paying the fee for him and we're willing to put that money down, and maybe he might look at that and think, look, my old manager, and they clearly are more serious about me joining than United, I'm going to go with them. That could easily happen. But right now, we know he's a boyhood Man United fan. As long as that option's open, which clearly it is, I think he's going to lean there. But But obviously, Ornstein said he's chosen Man United. Now all of a sudden he's leaning toward Man United, which would show maybe he's not as certain as he was. But look, I still wouldn't put money on Tottenham completing this hijack. I think United probably feel like they'll get this deal done, but it ain't over till it's over.
Do you buy that Spurs put in that 70 million bid last week?
I don't think they submitted a bid, but I'm sure they showed a interest. I'm sure they showed a kind of willingness to make a bid. I don't think they put a formal offer in. No, I don't think so. But I think maybe they verbally said we're willing to do this kind of thing.
If we are interested in hijacking, why not put in that bid straight up to show we mean proper business?
I don't think it means too much, because then you get the risk of him rejecting you, and that's a bit more embarrassing than doing it privately. I would think they're doing it for intermediaries, I would say.
Do you feel like it was... I mean, I kind of feel like it was just put in the press to try and hurry Manchester United on.
So you don't think we're interested?
I think we're interested, but the report was that we put in a bid of 70 million.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's true. I don't think we put in a bid. I don't think we submitted a formal bid. No, I don't believe that.
That's what I'm asking you. And I feel like that specifically was put in the press to kind of say, look, Tottenham are serious here, man. If you want him, you need to pay this kind of money. Or that's it.
That could be true.
Yeah, that's just the way I feel. Another Brentford player that we're going to talk about today is Christian Norgaard. As Court Offside says that Tottenham are preparing a bid for Brentford midfielder Christian Norgaard, and the Danish international is viewed as a priority addition by Frank to strengthen his engine room. I mean, so now you look at it, right? We've been linked with Collins, Mbeumo, Norgaard, Wissa, Damsgaard, Yarmulke. Anyone else?
We're basically turning into Brentford. We're going to be Brentford.
This is becoming a bit ridiculous, on top of taking all their backroom staff.
I think it's a lot of his lazy journalism, to be honest.
I completely agree. Plus taking their manager. Christian Norgaard has been brilliant. He's been brilliant for Brentford. He's been brilliant for Thomas Frank. He's been their captain. He's been there for a long time. But at his age, we need to be looking at like the kind of monster six that can spearhead us into the Champions League, not spearhead us to mid-table. So this just stinks of when Postecoglou joined us and we were linked with every Celtic player under the sun.
And also, I think the fact of the matter is he came to Brentford to have more quality, not to sign Brentford players. I know people like Mbeumo have the quality to come and play for Tottenham, but there's a reason why people are excited about him coming to Tottenham, and it's not. And sorry, there's a reason why Frank's probably excited about coming to Tottenham. It's because he's got bigger budget and he's got more quality, and that doesn't mean going back and raiding all the players who have inferior quality, and that's kind of what forced him to play in certain ways that he did. So it doesn't make any sense to sign too many Brentford players. Obviously, the ones with real quality, like Mbeumo, I think. Yes, I think you go for someone like him, but Norgaard, I think we all know we can do better than him. I know, look, and I agree with you, he's done great for Brentford, and even statistically, you see how many tackles he makes per game and how he plays. He's profile-wise, he kind of makes sense, but he's old. He's a bit older. Look, he's 31. He's a limited player. I think we just need more quality, and the budget we should be able to have at Tottenham and the pool, like we should be able to get someone better than Norgaard. So doesn't excite me at all. If that's potential.
So let us know your thoughts about Norgaard in the comments section below. Another player that we're going to talk about that we have been linked to in the past is Marcus Rashford. As Caught Offside says that Tottenham have now entered the race for 27-year-old England international, and they face competition from the likes of Aston Villa and Newcastle as well. I mean, look, first of all, we're not going to pay the wages that he's on. We might be able to agree a fee with Manchester United for Rashford if they're desperate to get him out the door. But first of all, they're either going to have to subsidise his wages dramatically, or he's going to have to accept lower wages. But I just can't see this one being a goer at all.
No, I don't think we're in the race for him. I think the only way you would sign him is a deadline day loan deal. That's the only way I see it. And that would be assuming that a lot of our signings we haven't been able to pull off. So, no, I don't believe that we're getting Rashford. I don't believe we're in the race for Rashford. I don't believe that report whatsoever. Yeah. But I think, to be fair, he had a good loan spell at Villa. He played well. Yeah. Got to give him credit. I think he was a lot better at Villa than he showed at the last 18 months of United.
Yeah. But still, like even what he showed at Villa, you still expect a bit more from a player of Marcus's quality.
I think he was pretty good. I think considering how out of favour he's been and the criticism he's been getting, I thought he was a bit of a spark for Aston Villa during that loan spell. But for me, not worth it. Not worth the wages. There's there's players out there that I think we can get for less who could easily do a better job. So, and look, obviously we have to see what the future for Son entails. We know we just got Tell through the door, so I don't see us going big on Rashford right now.
Yeah. In terms of outgoings, the Bleacher Report have done a report about Guillermo Vicario, and they say he's high placed on the AC Milan shortlist who are looking for a new goalkeeper. Max Allegri really likes the player, and the Spurs hierarchy have considered selling him, but a new goalkeeper is not currently viewed as a priority for Spurs this summer. We did hear last week there was a report saying that Vicario and Dragishin's agent have been spotted in Casa Milan speaking to Milan about Vicario and Dragishin, and now this report follows on from that. And it also follows on from, what you've been saying about what profiles that Frank wants from his goalkeeper, and Vicario just isn't that profile.
I agree. I would say Kinski fits that profile more, and I completely agree with that. And that's kind of what the feeling I've been getting ever since Frank got heavily linked or confirmed at Tottenham. I think when you look at who our keepers are and who's more suited to what Frank wants from their goalkeepers, I think Kinski's definitely more suited than Vicario. Vicario is currently our number one, and we know I think he's a superior, obviously, shot stopper. I think he's a superior goalkeeper right now to Kinski, to be honest, overall. Sure. So the thought of selling him, making Kinski our number one, and then signing a number two, or maybe even giving Keeley the number two shirt with Austin as number three, doesn't you're taking even more experience out of the team. He's obviously Vicario's 28, Kinski's 21, Keeley's 21, 22. Austin is only played a handful of games in his career. So taking Vicario out doesn't make me feel that comfortable. But I do think if a really good offer comes in, maybe we would consider it for Vicario. But would we then go back in the market for another keeper, or do we trust with what we got if we do that? I wouldn't want to sell him. I'd rather just keep what we have. I think it's a better situation. You've got two good goalkeepers battling it out. Yes, Kinski might take it, or I think Vicario is going to start the season as our number one anyway. So maybe if Vicario can improve in certain aspects, which Kinski's strong at, maybe he can keep that spot. But I do think right now as a profile, Kinski fits the profile more. I don't think it makes too much sense unless there's a really good offer in for him. I don't think it makes too much sense selling him.
I don't think we sell him this summer. I feel like Frank will put his trust in him from the get-go. He's a big voice in the dressing room, part of the leadership group, been our number one for the past couple of years now, Vicario. So I feel like we go into the season with him, and there's a chance that Kinski kind of takes his spot during at some point in the season, and we sell him next summer. But I think for this summer, I don't think he's going to want to kind of upset the apple cart too much, and I think Vicario will stay at Spurs. I can't see him leaving. I
agree, unless there's a very good offer there. Maybe 45 to 50.
I don't think anyone's bidding that for Vicario this summer.
So then we won't sell him. But I'm saying unless we get a very good offer.
Yeah, potentially. And last but not least, Diego Simeone has been talking about Cuti Romero. Just a very short snippet, but he was asked, do you want Cuti Romero? And he's like, do I want Cuti Romero? Obviously, he's a great player. So he's not like towing the line saying, I don't like to speak about players at other clubs. Very brazenly, obviously, he's a great player.
Yeah. So he's not quietening the noise, is he? He's a lot of, as you say, a lot of people in that situation would say similar stuff. It's disrespectful to talk about players of other clubs, or he's contracted to another club, all these kind of things. But he's very much out there, putting out there like, yes, we want to bring in Cuti Romero, essentially. So the interest we know is there. It's not a surprise. Simeone's obviously an Argentinian legend. He's obviously been that manager of that club for a long time. I think Romero would fit in like a glove. A team like
Romero's probably a bigger legend than Simeone now, isn't he?
Yeah, probably, but Simeone is still, in terms of like how he's viewed in Argentina, not just as a player, but him being an Argentinian. He didn't manage the national team, but he's an Argentinian manager who's done an amazing job at Atletico Madrid. I think Romero would love to play under him, I'm sure. But there's a lot of moving factors. Apparently, they only want to pay 40 million. We obviously want a lot more than that. Whether he has to have a conversation with Frank about where his head's at, about if he thinks there's any possibility he can stay, that still needs to be had. So I don't think we're going to see any information on this in the next few weeks while those things are being planned out. But I think right now, yes, I think if Atletico put the money on the table, I think that's pretty likely he goes. But nothing's set in stone at the moment.
No. And we have heard, that he is set to have talks with Frank, and maybe, with Frank telling him how he sees the project going, with his man and management skills and everything like that. There is a possibility that he can sway Romero on side, but I think if you're going to ask me right here, right now, would he, be gagging for a move away? I'll probably say yes, unfortunately. So that is your Tottenham update for today. Let us know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we've brought to you today.